For a Shonen Jump battle manga series that ran from 1984 to 1995, it's not surprising to see that Dragon Ball video games sold very well from the very beginning, with its first video game ever, Dragon Ball Shinro no Nazo, selling 1,250,000 copies only in Japan. Is it a good game though? Probably not, but what I'm trying to get at is the fact that Dragon Ball sells games. So it's not surprising to see that the first game in the Budokai series was the highest selling Dragon Ball game until 2015 with Xenoverse. This was due to the series getting a resurgence thanks to the show airing on Cartoon Network on the Toonami block starting in 1998 and ending in 2003. For many, the Budokai series hold a special place in their hearts, including me, so let me be a dick and talk about how the first Budokai game does not age well. And before you guys click off the video out of anger, I won't be completely trashing the game because there is fun stuff in this game and it's good. It's a good game, but it just doesn't hold up. And I'll also be covering the sequel, Budokai 2, and spoiler alert, it holds up much better than its predecessor, even if people have a weird hatred for the game. The Budokai series was striving to be nostalgic for the Japanese audience. It had been 7 years since the series ended in the Shonen Jump magazine, so that means the kids who were reading it were now adults. That's why the first Budokai game tries to retell the story up until the Cell Saga. The reason why I think this was the case is because Daisuke Uchiyama, who helped produce and direct the Budokai series, stated that he had his own policy when making a series. Create the first from scratch, evolve the second, complete the series by the third, don't make a fourth. So the Buu Saga was probably left out to focus more on the mechanics and see what worked and didn't work, and also to make the sequel have a good selling point. But let's be real, I don't think anyone nowadays would have cared if the Buu Saga was adapted in this game because, I mean, look at this game. There are some good recreations like the special beam cannon scene, but most of the time the models are animated to look like they have lip flaps and they have no emotion. Just nothing. Imitating emotions, like some sort of homunculus creature. What does have more emotion, however, is the voice acting in this game. For being Funimation's first job dubbing a video game, it's a bit rough around the edges at times.
What? No! Vegeta!
Because this game was being made at around the same time when the anime was getting dubbed, there are some actors and performances you don't hear in modern Dragon Ball. Stuff like raspy sounding Vegeta.
Too bad. What a shame. Now you die!
And Linda Young as Frieza.
You're dead. But I want to stop with a little phone.
Some odd line deliveries, but it's not too big of a deal considering the performances get better for the rest of the series, and besides, I love these voice clips.
To see his comrades again.
So after the story mode is completed, you are given these extra chapters where they cover other important fights that weren't playable for the first time for some reason, like Zarbon vs Vegeta. But the real good stuff is the what ifs. This little Cell is from what if Cell absorbed Krillin instead of 18, thus forcing Cell to fight Yamcha and Tien. Turns out it was just Cell having a dream while waiting for the Cell games, and that's adorable. Then there's if Vegeta and Frieza killed everyone, where you just do a rush of matches.
Get down here, Baldy!
Vegeta goes Super Saiyan because Nappa died in a lame way, and Frieza gets immortality even if it doesn't make sense. The gameplay is super easy to pick up and anyone can play it. There's like 3 types of characters though, like the basic easy to use guy, the big tough guy, and then there's these unique characters that I'll get into in a bit. This game was not made to be a competitive fighting game, so that's fine, but the fights are just really boring and slow. The only cool thing that happens in these matches are the clashes and super attacks. The clashes honestly do make it seem more like an anime fight even if you're just twirling the analog stick around. The super attacks are activated after a certain combo, but honestly they don't do that much damage and some of the animations are a bit stupid. My other complaint in this game is that these stages are way too big. There's parts of the stage where you can knock down your enemies, which a cutscene triggers, but they are so far away that it's unlikely to trigger them. Also, the stages are pretty bland, like wow, 2 plain stages. Very few stages actually have places from the Dragon Ball universe except places like Kami's Lookout, Hyperbolic Time Chamber, and the Cell games. The Legend of Hercule is unironically the best part of the whole game. Basically, Hercule has to defeat every Cell game participant, sometimes with a certain condition. What carries this mode is the charm of it all, which is helped with Hercule's voice actor, Chris Rager.
What the? Oh yeah. Oh, you're gonna gang up against me, huh? Well, I'll show you cheeky bugs. I'll floor the lot of you.
It's also nice that Hercule plays the best out of the whole roster. When you use a Kamehameha, it usually wastes 1 bar, but with a dynamite kick, you waste 1 bar and regain half of the bar. So Hercule legit has an advantage over the rest of the cast. There's just something about how Hercule moves and plays that makes him much more enjoyable to play than the rest of the characters. Also, his ultimates are really funny. However, there is another character who plays a tad better than the great Hercule, and that's...
Great Saiyaman at your service!
He's the only character that's past the Cell Saga, and he is so satisfying to play as. Hitting a Justice Punch in or kick is the best feeling, and they also have the same properties as a dynamite kick. Another aspect that I do like about this game is its costumes. They aren't simple palette swaps. They usually wear a costume they wore in the anime or manga, Vegeta and Goku's outfit being my favorite. A lot of characters are missing from the anime. I honestly have no idea why Jace, Burter, and Goldo are not playable characters when they have 3D models and are already voiced. However, the final character roster is not too bad, but like I said, most of the characters play the same anyway, but at least the icons are cute.
I went to college!
I don't recommend this game at all, but what I can say is that the game has more charm than any anime games that were released at the time, so effort was put in at the very least. Some say this game stops being good after this intro. Budokai 2, the game that everyone hates for whatever reason, and I'm here to defend Budokai 2 because it's a way better game than the first one. It may be just a 6 out of 10 game, but it's a hell of a 6 out of 10. Let's just boot up a game and look. You can twirl Master Roshi in the loading screen, much better than just moving the little radar in the previous game. Anyways, the graphics and presentation are a huge improvement. They converted to cell shading, which helped immensely with the character models. I should add that the Gamecube version of the first Budokai game tried to add cell shading because even Nintendo realized how terrible it looked, but this time the cell shading was fully utilized. Not only were the models improved with cell shading, the environment is a lot more colorful and lively, and as well as the effects like the energy blasts. The super attack animations were also improved, making them a lot more cooler and impactful. The size of the stages were also fixed. And look, most of the stages pull from actual locations from the manga, or at least look a lot more interesting because I honestly have no idea what this stage is, but it looks cool. The gameplay itself is another good improvement. They still have the same issues like CPUs guarding often, most of the super attacks are like the same 5 animations, and for whatever reason some of the attacks have negative frames so the opponent can hit you back immediately. However, if you're like me and played Budokai 2 directly after the first one, you can tell right off the bat that the game is much faster even if they're reusing animations from the previous game. One good example of the game being more fast-paced is the sidestepping. They made that much quicker and it honestly helps the fights being less boring. Budokai's 2 damage is also increased, making the matches go quicker and making the player feel they're actually doing damage. And they made the super attacks do a lot more damage, making them feel a lot more impactful. However, this might be also a detriment because the matches are usually over in 1 minute. Wish they added extra bars of health or something. Hey, at least this time around we got characters from the Buu saga, and most of them actually play a lot differently from the rest of the cast except like... And this game is the only game in the Budokai series to have something unique, and that's weird fucking fusions. Sure, you can also play as normal fusions, but don't you want to play as Goku? Or how about Tiencha? Like, what the fuck is that? And the fusions are honestly super fun to play as, even if some of them are on borrowed time. But the fun weird stuff doesn't stop at the fusions, no. Did you ever wanted to know what Buu would look like if you absorbed Vegeta? No? Well, too bad, there he is. Super Buu, when he absorbs a character, essentially just gets their super moves and ultimate attacks. I don't know if this is the same in the Japanese, but the voice actor for Buu, Justin Cook, does impressions of the people he absorbed in their ultimate attacks, and that's fun.
It's over now! Gather energy!
One thing that didn't improve was the music, because it's still kick-ass as much as the previous installment, and oh fuck, I didn't talk about the music in the first Budokai game. Basically, Kenji Yamamoto was the composer for the Budokai games and was also the composer for the legendary Kai score, but he was caught for plagiarizing music. So all future releases of products he scored in were replaced. The first game had a score that more closely resembled the American score of the original airing of the show. So lots of... Not all the music was rock though, some had cool synths and even psychedelic sounding music. I can't explain how much I love the soundtrack of the first game, so here's a second of every song.
How about new?
Now, Budokai 2 was unique because do you guys know who was helping Yamamoto this time around? Tower of Power. I don't really know who they are, but I do know who Todo is, who also helped with the Budokai 2 intro song. And for the vocals of the song that we unfortunately didn't get in the West was Hironobu Kageyama from Jam Project. If you need to be reminded who that is, that's... This time around, the new music that was made for Budokai 2 has a more jazz funk style, which is a cool combination of the American score and a Japanese score. Now, the big selling point for this game was the Buu Saga, but what people didn't like was the story mode turning into a board game that was more so loosely based on the story. Actually, Frieza never fought Goku in the Arctic? Who gives a flying f- Actually, hold on, before I continue with the story mode, let me just...
Hey, come fight the next time you come in, okay? Come fight the next time you come in, okay? Fight the next time you come in, okay? Fight the next time you come in, 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 okay?
I honestly recommend doing this glitch because unlocking characters and capsules are a bit of a hassle in this game. Unlocking capsules is the same as in the previous game, get money from the World Tournament and spend it in the shop, and it gets repetitive. But to unlock characters this time around, playing the whole story mode is just not enough. You have to defeat certain opponents with certain characters, like defeating Nappa with Tien to unlock Yamcha. So you would have to know that in the first place, but what happens if you found out balls deep in the Buu Saga? Well, tough luck, jolly green jackass, you're gonna have to restart the whole story mode just to do that. And the board game does get very repetitive towards the end, with the boards getting longer and longer, especially when you have to fight each character at least 2 times if you're lucky. There's also the side quest of fighting the Dragon Balls that make the board even longer and tedious. The worst board is for sure Supreme Kai's world because the only way to get to Kid Buu is Mr. Popo's magic carpets that teleport you randomly on the board. And while that's happening, the rest of the enemies are jumping around and gaining extra life points, making it even more tedious to play on, and that makes me just want to... However, even with the story mode's faults, I still vastly prefer this over the Budokai 1 story. Sure, Budokai 1 has these great cutscenes, but you're always stuck to a set of capsules, so there's no real point in going back to the story mode. With Budokai 2, even though you're forced to have multiple playthroughs of the same board, you're at least able to use every capsule you have. And there are a lot of skits in this game that you would have not seen in the first playthrough.
Can't you talk for real?
As of today, the Ginyu Force is hereby dissolved. Would you care to join the Vegeta Special Forces instead?
What? I trust your special fighting pose is pretty cool, right? Wait, nah, forget it. I like my own pose.
You really are one ridiculous fool.
But did you know there's a version of Budokai 2 that makes it a 6 out of 10 game to like a 6.5 out of 10? Only 2,000 copies were ever sold, and it was called Dragon Ball Z2 Woo Wah Woo Wee. Only released in Japan and only given to lucky readers of V-Jump. V-Jump, or Video Game Jump, is a magazine from Shueisha that focuses on video games. So something like Nintendo Power, where there were walkthroughs and gaming news. Only a few manga are actually published here, like Dragon Ball Super, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, etc. Now, what's new in this version? For Americans, the new things would be the Japanese voices, and man, I did not expect Frieza to be making these noises. And I also thought the names like Milky Cannon was just a weird dub name, but nope. It's also in Japanese. Also, for Japanese PlayStation games, X button is the cancel button while circle is the confirm button. It made traversing through menus really fucking hard. The major selling point, however, was the ability to play as Cooler. Well, I mean, he's just a skin of Frieza, but it's still cool nonetheless. Another character that was added was Frieza, a character from Akira Toriyama's one-shot Nico Majin and the son of Frieza. What's cool about these two is that even though both of these characters are just skins, they still get new forms when using Frieza's spaceship capsule. Cooler becomes Metal Cooler, and Frieza turns into his final form. This version also adds the Majin forms of Frieza and Cell that appear in the story mode. Another cosmetic change is the World Tournament has a V-Jump decal on the floor, and in the last round having the logo actually be a 3D model, so that's cool. Now, here's the actual addition that boosts up the game from a 6 to a 6.5. And that's they added an option to have more life bars.
Going back